of assuming that the CEO of, whatever company has the nice car, they must have it all together. You don't. We do not have it all together. This is a huge eye opener for me. I don't have it all together. And not only does this organization depend on me, the neighbors depend on me. So we have staff that depend on me, we have volunteers that depend on me, and we have neighbors that depend on me. And if we don't get money in the door, volunteers in the door, food in the door, if we don't find ways to do that, then those kids go hungry. I, as a child, go hungry, right? I don't have that third meal, that second meal. My mom goes to sleep wondering how she's going to feed five mouths, so I see that the same way as the neighbor.
Right.
Um, so yeah, yeah, no, the CEOs don't have it all together.
Right. And I think that it comes with money and power, right? Like we assume the CEO title has those two things with it. And I've been guilty of it too in the past. And I think the living the experience when you're moving up in your career, you start realizing a lot of our assumptions when we're employees or then we start to get into, junior leadership, then mid-level leadership, like throughout that phase of growth, we evolve as people. So we see on a completely different plane that, oh, it's not what I thought, whether good or bad,
Right.
right? Like a lot of our assumptions are just stories we're making up in our head. We actually don't have the proof. And if we're not open to hearing the stories and getting to know the people and their hearts, like genuinely seeing them for individuals, we can't understand what people are going through.
Welcome to the Resilient Minds podcast, stories of grit, growth, and success, where we dive deep into the journey of successful leaders who've struggled and succeeded. Before the wins, before the titles, what was the mindset behind the leader? On this show, we focus on real stories behind the success, the struggles, the resilience, and the courage it takes to keep moving forward, even when times get tough. My goal is to provide you with stories of hope and transformation, showing that no matter the challenges, there is a way forward. On this show, we'll be meeting with highly successful leaders who've battled through obstacles, emerging stronger and wiser on the other side. This show is for anyone who wants to grow, evolve, and find the light at the end of the tunnel. Everyone's a leader. So together, we'll uncover what it truly means to evolve as leaders, and ultimately, as human beings. This is Resilient Minds.
Hey, I'm your host, Dr. Campbell, and I'm here with Vicky Martinez, and she is the CEO of Arlington Charities here in Dallas. And when I heard what they were doing in the community, my heart really wanted to hear more about what they have to offer. And then Vicky being in this position, it's a very hard position to be the CEO of a nonprofit, especially how much they're supporting the community. Vicky, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Can you tell me about what you guys are doing? What's your mission?
Sure. Our mission is to serve the community here in Arlington. We serve the neighbors that are here in Arlington and surrounding areas. So Mansfield and a little bit of Grand Prairie, Kennedale, that kind of area. But we are serving the food insecure.
Serving the what?
Food insecure.
Okay.
People who are insecure, who do not know where their next meal is going to come from.
That's a beautiful mission. And I think that you guys are probably always in need of help, right? To be able to help the community, that's a big job.
Definitely, because we are a nonprofit, we don't spend a lot of our funds on staff, so we depend greatly on the community to help come in and volunteer, organizations within the community, individuals within the community. We even help with people who need to do community service for whatever reason. They can come in and also help us by volunteering.
That's good to know. My kiddos always need community service for their high school, so that's a really good place. And I'm sorry
Yes, key clubs.
when I introduced I said Dallas, I'm thinking like Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, right? It's huge.
Mhm.
But I appreciate you clarifying that you guys are located in Arlington and you serve the
Mhm.
surrounding areas. Vicky, the years that I've had in the mental health field, I spent 15 years working with survivors of trauma. And one thing I've seen, people who are helping people often understand how hard it is to be in that space. And so hearing the backstories and the trauma or the abandonment or the poverty, whatever the situation, the people who are usually leading those types of organizations that are helping the community, they often have a backstory themselves.
Yes, Jacqueline, and I did when I first got into food insecurity. I've been doing this for about 17, 18 years now, the food insecurity part of it. I didn't realize that I was a lived experience, and that's what you call it, a lived experience. That means I actually lived the experience of the people we are serving, the neighbors that we're serving. So I grew up in a very, very poor neighborhood in Houston. And I was food insecure. I didn't know that it was food insecure. Like, I guess because the people we hung out with, the kids that we hung out with were also food insecure. So I just figured everybody was hungry. And I didn't know a lot about pantries or food banks or any of that either. I just knew I needed to get to school so I could eat. I knew during the summer it was one meal a day, and when school started, I could actually have at least two meals a day, most of the time three, because then we would just have dinner at home.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, I do. I have the lived experiences.
Well, I appreciate you putting that term to it because a lot of people who have such a passion to solve a world problem, right? They are the people who have those lived experiences. Can you tell me more about your family? Like what was, because that's obviously it's horrible for you to be in that situation, but you have the whole family involved in it. What was going on?
Sure, we just had a single mom raising five kids. So usually it was me. I was the oldest of five, raising four kids. Mom with addiction throughout our childhood. Um, she did what she could to keep us all five together, and we did the rest. Survival of the fittest, I guess. You just do what you need to do. You don't really realize that you're doing it until you later grow up and look back and you're like, oh, we survived. But yeah, we did. We didn't know where food was coming from. There was, several Christmases we didn't have Christmas, or we depended on other people in the community, which was such a blessing as well to take us in. And again, at the time, you don't really realize that that's going on. It just is part of life, right? And then you get older and you're like, okay, now I see what these neighbors are going through, and I can be empathetic and compassionate. And out of all the time I've been doing this, never have I once been jaded. And it's very easy to become jaded when you do this for so long. But I always just remember that child that grew up in Houston. And, um, I don't know. Um, I just know what it's like, and I don't ever want anybody to feel like they can't get help or feel bad because they're coming to get food. This is, a right, basic need, a basic right for our neighbors. So anyway, I digress.
No, no, that's perfect. And I think a lot of people need to understand too that it is very hard to not get jaded. Why do you think a lot of people working in your position and trying to help the community, why do they get jaded?
Because you're doing the same thing every day, right? You hear one story after another story after another story. And before long, you've just been hearing the stories. And now you're no longer putting that family with the story. You're just putting that story. Right. And so, yeah, yeah, that's another story. Yeah. Everybody's got a story. And that's, how, and maybe it's your heart learning how to deal with all the stories, right? Because when you first start hearing those stories, there's some of them that can bring you down and you can take this home with you.
Yeah.
definitely take it home with you. So protect yourself. I'm sure, you're like, okay, this is another story. This is another story. Or I think that people make assumptions. It's very easy to make an assumption. If you see a Cadillac pull up while you're putting food in the back of that Cadillac, your mind automatically goes to, wow, what a nice car, right? But you have to remember, you don't know where that car came from. You don't know if that, is the last possession that family has left from losing their job a year ago. You don't know if that's their grandmother's car. You don't know if that's the neighbor's car. That's, that you borrowed it just to get here. So we have to remember those things. We can't just assume, you know. Um, and I think that's how it would be. I don't know. Maybe it is protecting our hearts.
Right. Well, I also think that it's easy to judge, right? Like if you're
Mhm,
constantly doing, trying to help, and a lot of times boundaries become, questionable for you. Well, how much do I give? If it's coming
mhm,
home with me, then I'm not just leaving it at the office. I'm trying to help, but now it's hurting me. So boundaries, from what I've seen, it always for therapists, for coaches, for leaders, especially givers, we have a servant's heart. We tend to give too much. And so that's where we need to recognize nobody needs to continue taking when you need help. Like they don't need to do that, but if they're trying to or if you're offering it, somebody needs to stop that. Right? So
mhm.
boundaries needs to be a part of our self-care. Have you experienced that as well?
I have. I have. Um, I don't know if I've yet learned how to deal with those boundaries or put those boundaries in place. I know I need them. You need them as well to go home and disconnect yourself from what's going on at work. Um, so I know I need those boundaries, but I don't know. I think a lot of times I don't know how to put them in place. And I think a lot of people are like that. They don't know how to put those boundaries in place. And it can be any kind of boundaries, but these are the ones I struggle with.
Right. And I appreciate your honesty with that because if we're not transparent, then we can't get the help that we need because just because we're helping people doesn't mean, and I'm no different. Like sometimes I need help, right? But being able to say, yeah, this is something that I'm struggling with, and or this is what I've recovered from, or this is something that I will probably always struggle with, whatever the situation. But being mindful of those, taking accountability, knowing and being authentic with it instead of trying to act like
Mhm.
they have it all together. Nobody has it all together, right? I sure don't. When
Yes, I do not either.
right, and I think that's part of admitting it that it's okay, right? And I think
Mhm,
that softens our heart because if we're a servant, if we have a servant's heart and we want to help, we can either give too much, which makes us jaded, right? Or we can create those. They're not even just boundaries; they're like walls, right? Like we close off our heart so that we can just keep doing the job, right? Then we become
right.
less and so contained and shut off that that's what drives us to addictive behaviors and that's what drives us to overworking and sacrificing ourselves because now we're just robots, right?
Yes. Yes. And I think in nonprofit, it's a little bit harder too, because when you talk about the boundaries of, putting your wall up and, blocking that off, going home, you know, when you're in this position, like my position as CEO, and there's no set hours for me to work, but I know our operation depends on that next grant, that next foundation, that next dollar. I can be here 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night trying to make sure that I'm doing everything I need to do to get those grants in or to get that document in, whatever the case may be. So you're right, the boundaries aren't there. I know I need them. I remember that I'm supposed to have them, but I also know that this organization depends on me staying until 7 to get that in, or that last report, or the board meeting, agenda together. There's always something, right? You have to remember there's always something to do. So where do you draw that line and say, I can't do this?
Mm,
You know?
yeah,
Yeah. So boundaries.
right.
I
But
don't have them.
that's going to be part of the title of today's show, which is interesting because a lot of people don't know what CEOs sacrifice. right? They think that they got a nice car, they got the title, they got the power, they're just barking orders, telling everybody what to do. And because they're at the top, right? They assume, I feel, and I've heard a lot of assumptions that they have all the money and they have all the power, so they must be fine. They don't need anything, right?
Yeah. Um, you know, I could probably say I've been guilty of that too, right? I haven't always been a CEO. I think that I have been guilty of, not knowing the unknown. If you don't know, you make it up in your mind, right? So, um, yeah, I think I could be found guilty of assuming that the CEO of, whatever company has the nice car, they must have it all together. You don't. We do not have it all together. This is a huge eye opener for me. I don't have it all together. And not only does this organization depend on me, the neighbors depend on me. So we have staff that depend on me, we have volunteers that depend on me, and we have neighbors that depend on me. And if we don't get money in the door, volunteers in the door, food in the door, if we don't find ways to do that, then those kids go hungry. I, as a child, go hungry, right? I don't have that third meal, that second meal. My mom goes to sleep wondering how she's going to feed five mouths, so I see that the same way as the neighbor.
Right.
Um, so yeah, yeah, no, the CEOs don't have it all together.
Right. And I think that it comes with money and power, right? Like we assume the CEO title has those two things with it. And I've been guilty of it too in the past. And I think the living the experience when you're moving up in your career, you start realizing a lot of our assumptions when we're employees, or then we start to get into, junior leadership, then mid-level leadership, like throughout that phase of growth, we evolve as people. So we see on a completely different plane that, oh, it's not what I thought, whether good or bad,
Right.
right? Like a lot of our assumptions are just stories we're making up in our head. We actually don't have the proof. And if we're not open to hearing the stories and getting to know the people and their hearts, like genuinely seeing them for individuals, we can't understand what people are going through.
Right. Yes, you're right. And it's really goes back to making it up in your head, right? Instead of knowing the facts, it's easier just to make it up in your head and not know. So yeah, I
So
agree.
when it comes to you and taking care of yourself, or like the people in your organizations, do you guys have any norms about like wellness or mental health, anything like that? Health self-care regimens?
So I think because the organization is so small, they've never really, most of the staff was like part-time. But when I worked in full-time, well, I work full-time now, but when I worked for a larger nonprofit, yes, there was lots of help and programs that would come in that we were able to take advantage of. I haven't really implemented any of that here just yet, but this is my first year. So, but I do agree that it helps. It's very much needed. Um, I think another thing is where you talk about boundaries and I guess the work life balance.
Mhm.
If I'm not doing it, then my staff sees that I'm not doing it and they're not doing it. So if I don't get somebody in to tell them that it's okay and tell me it's okay, then I'm doing an injustice to them.
Right, and that's a huge burden. And what I've found is we do tend to hold a burden and responsibility in our shoulders, right? And
Sure.
so when I'm talking to my clients now as an executive coach, like when I'm working with them, their body always activates right here in the shoulders, right? Because you're literally carrying the load not only for you and the community, but then the business and your staff, and that modeled behavior. Like it's so hard to do everything, right? Because
Yeah.
said if they don't see you doing it, then you have an obligation to do it, even if it's just for them. Sometimes because we want to,
Hmm.
unfortunately, subconsciously, we tend to sacrifice ourselves, but you can't do that as a leader. You have to do better, right? Like take care of yourself even more and emphasize the mental health and the wellness even more which is hard too, because sometimes we don't want to, like, right? We just want to drop the heavy bag that we have on our backs and just be normal too. But then I feel our passion for helping it's like our mission, right? Like to continue helping. So we have no choice but to continue taking care of ourselves, even when we don't want to, because of the responsibility.
It's true. That's very true. Um, and then, we also get jaded as employers too, because you're just sitting here and you're working, you have no boundaries, you have no walls up, and then you're just looking out and you want them to be healthy, but you're like, okay, we just got to get this work done though. We just got to get the work done. So when do we have time to talk about self-help um and that work-life balance? When do we have time to talk about that with our staff?
Right.
Because we're really just trying to help the next neighbor,
Yeah.
and
And
then we want to go home.
because then we're exhausted when we go home, right? And I find that to be another reason why a lot of people don't or can't, because it doesn't matter which one you go with. Either way, it's still a reality. Like it's hard to do everything, right? Like there's only so much time in the day. And so time often is the reason why, well, how are you taking care of yourself? Well, I'm not. Why? I don't have enough time, right? Like because we go from you wake up in the morning, you if you have kids, you take them to school, you go to work, then you're giving all day, and then you're exhausted by the time you get off. So when you come home, you still have to do dinner, right? And there's
Yep.
usually traffic.
Yep.
And then like if you have kiddos at home, they need stuff too. So by the time you go to bed, and years ago I had to implement a rule with my kids, and they know now that they're teenagers and two of them are grown, they're out of the house. Mom time is before the kids wake up. I wake up really early because I want to be a happy mom and calm and collected. So I get work done and often have quiet time for myself. Then they wake up and I can be mom, right? Then at the
Mhm.
end of the day at 9 p.m., that is mom time. I have a whole hour to myself before my bedtime, which is at 10. I discipline myself for that. But they know that that mom time, if they need something, I'm sorry, guys, you have to do it before 9 p.m. because I need to be okay. And the way that I recuperate, because I'm a giver too, like I love helping people, is to be by myself, to ground, to meditate, to do breath work, to journal, to just sit in silence, you know,
Mhm.
whatever that may be. But I had to force myself to do that. And then over the years, my kids eventually got used to it. You know, what is one thing that's kind of like been a lifeline for you?
So I think my quiet drives are good for me. I unfortunately my kids are grown and out of the house already. So I don't have that like excuse that I have to turn off because or they can't come to me because they're not there to come to me now. But I still feel myself with everything else. I need to make sure that I go see the grandchildren. I need to make sure that the kids, have what they need, the adult kids. So I think my drive, you're right, the traffic is crazy. That's my downtime. That's my quiet time. That's my either podcast or silence time. So that's how I decompress. But other than that, I don't. I wish I had the discipline that you have of, okay, this is my bedtime and I'm going to take it. When I did have children, my quiet time was at night. I didn't make that time in the morning before school or work. I just did my time at night. But even my time at night was, cleaning up and making sure lunches were ready and stuff like that. So I think I've always had an issue with boundaries.
I think a lot of givers do. You're not the only one. And really, I think a lot of my discipline, one, it came from the military, but two, it's the accountability. Like you're saying, I teach leaders how to do it and I help them regulate their nervous system so they can be more calm and have more clarity in the hard decisions that they have every single day. And so I can't, just like you said, like I have that burden too, which is a good responsibility to have actually, but it's still hard, is I have no choice but to take care of myself if I'm teaching people how to do it, you know?
Yeah. I think guilt plays a lot in that too, because if you're taking that time away, what could you have, and that goes through my brain, even when I'm trying to take my time alone, that guilt is in my mind of what could you be doing though? You're, sitting here in silence for but what could you be doing? This whole hour that you've lost trying to be quiet, you're just thinking in your mind, what could I be doing? Because you're not really quiet, or I don't feel like I'm really being quiet, right? If you're thinking about the next step, are you really being quiet for yourself?
Right. Very true. And I found, like you said, sometimes I listen to podcasts or audio music or audio music, audio books or music with words, right? Because it's different than silence or music without words, like instrumental or meditative music. And what I did is, because you are absolutely right, when you're thinking, you're still not still and quiet.
Mhm.
And so when you do have that quiet time, recognizing that your brain is still trying to process through stuff. And on my drives in the morning, I can have audiobooks, but I had to discipline myself. My drive at the end of the day to go get the kids, or like your drive home, that's got to be the silent time. I can listen to meditative music, I can listen to instrumental, but it has to be quiet so that my mind, because eventually, like you have that ruminating thought, or what could you be doing, or what should I be doing, that eventually gets quiet the more you do it, and the more you discipline yourself to have more stillness, which is calm and clarity, right? It can only get the calm and clarity once that story, the thought process slows down, and then the mind can get quiet, right? Then once it gets used to being quiet, it's kind of like working a muscle, but you have to know that it's part of the process, right? And the more quiet time we get, actually, the more insights are kind of like downloaded. Like, let's say you have a
Mhm.
problem and you need, let's say, more volunteers for your organization, and you're like, I don't know how to do it and I'm frustrated. Your body starts going into fight or flight. Your brain actually starts closing up so it can't see that there's solutions, and they could be right in front of you. So if you have more quiet time, if you decompress your brain, when it gets quiet, the answer, it's going to kind of like come to you, and then it's like, oh, it just popped in. That's the way our brain operates when it's trying to get the answer to a solution. It needs the quiet. So I love that you're doing that, because you are absolutely right. If we're ruminating, the brain's not quiet.
Yeah, it's not. I can actually miss an entire podcast
Hmm.
because my brain is going. And maybe, like you said, I'm trying to figure it out, and the answer might be right there in front of me, but because it's going there, I can't find it. So, by the time I finish with my drive, my podcast is over and I'm like, I don't even know what happened.
Yeah. And
So,
that is a very common symptom, right? Of
mhm,
our nervous system just constantly stimulated over its own overdrive with a lot of leaders.
mhm,
It's very common. So actually, this might be helpful for you and for the other leaders, but having those drives where sometimes I have a podcast on and sometimes I need a stillness, like differentiating between the two, putting it on your time blocking calendar, right? Like that
mhm,
helps, because then you set a boundary on yourself. But also what I find is, when you sit in your car before you take the drive, if you go on YouTube, look up a 5, maybe 10-minute breath work exercise that decompresses the body enough before you start driving so you can have more stillness. It quiets it down a little bit more.
mhm. That makes so much sense. It really does. Um, because then you get your brain started before you even start it, your quiet time.
Exactly. Perfect. All right. Well, then, is there anything that the community really needs to know before we hop off about what Arlington Charities is doing or needs?
Definitely. We always need volunteers, always. Just giving your time, coming in here and packing some groceries or sorting through some vegetables or fruits. We have a website you can go on and log in and look at all the different opportunities to volunteer. We have community events that we need volunteers to come and help us pass out food to large distributions, that kind of things. We have Amazon and Walmart wish lists that you can find on the website as well, and also other donation opportunities as well with that too.
That's beautiful. And I appreciate you elaborating, all the different opportunities, because sometimes it's not just money. Sometimes we need to.
No, exactly. You are right. Yes.
Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing your story and what Arlington Charities is doing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining. Your time and your focus are your most valuable currencies, so thank you for giving that to us today. Our guest contact information will be in the description below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. But please, if you know someone who's struggling, stop right now and send this video to them. The struggle behind growth and success is real, and they need the support to make it, because the strongest minds are the ones that healed. So don't forget, lead louder, feel deeper, and stay resilient. Until next time, this is your host, Dr. Campbell, on the Resilient Minds Podcast.